not know death when you see it, old man. This is my power.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Writers' Showcase stream. I am your host, Lord Captain Commander Dunn, or B. Malachi Dunn, and I am joined by a bunch of wonderful guests. So please welcome to the stream my guests. First off, my lovely co-host, Neph Champion.
Good afternoon, everyone.
And we have a few more guests. Please welcome. Welcome, Count Valerian.
Thank you, Lord Commander.
Of course. Always a pleasure to have you. I need to organize these better. I have a lot of stuff. And here we go.
Hello, Kaiju.
Welcome.
Oh, crap. I had a witty retort, but I forgot it. God damn it.
You should have written it down first.
That's what I do usually. That's why I have a quote book.
Quote books are gay.
Oh, you would be surprised the funny things like bad Mormon pickup lines that I've written down in there.
Yeah. I could actually probably use them because normally when I'm scripting stuff, it's like, well, I just said something really fucking funny when I was talking to myself like a crazy person the other day. Why can't I remember it?
For instance, let me find one. Shouldn't take too long. Let me see.
Hi, the Joannis or the John Annis.
Let me see. A bad, funny Mormon pickup line that I have is, "Girl, is your name Manna? Because I wouldn't mind spending the next 40 years in the desert with you."
Oh. A Mormon from Earth.
Oh no.
Girl, is your name Pharaoh? Because if I was Moses, my serpent would be coming out real fast.
Well comment.
Yeah. Did you people have enough cookies? I ate all of them. Rubs massive stomach. I bless this extremely unhealthy food to nourish and strengthen my body. You break it, all the calories fall out.
What the fuck? I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't.
I don't get it either, but that's funny.
Basically, he prayed over it to nourish and strengthen his body before eating it. A bunch of cookies.
If I believe hard enough, all this sugar and calories will turn into muscle.
He was being facetious, but yeah. Maybe one of these days I'll read the entire thing. Hopefully, or I have one. Oh, this one's funny. What humor do you have that isn't appropriate? I have some stories. Like what? The time I saw a book and in a store and I was reading and I saw a sticker in the back that said "free poster in this book," so I ripped out the poster. Why? Because it said "free poster."
Ew.
Oh my god.
Groan, groan.
Oh my god.
No, this is quote book. These are things that I actually have said. These are either things I have said or things I have heard. No, these are not Diabito fan fiction.
Yes, it is Diabito fan fiction. Oh, yeah.
It's
Yeah, Bob got fired from The Escapist.
thank goodness.
Wait, what?
Movie Bob was fired from The Escapist.
Oh, thank God.
Oh, that ball.
Which I think that's the second time it's happened.
Yeah.
Like he was part of The Escapist, and either he left or he got fired, and then they hired him back. And what was ironic is that they didn't want to get, they were trying to avoid getting too political, and that they hire Movie Bob.
That's
Oh my God.
that seems antithetical to being non-political, because
Yes.
Movie Bob just makes everything political. Alrighty, so how it's gonna work is Neph, Count Valerian, Abysm of Terror, and Kaiju God.
Okay.
So
Okay.
unless anybody has a time crunch, in which case they can go first. I'm pretty.
No, I don't got no time crunch. I don't go anywhere.
Hmm.
Second is fine. I yield to the Lady Neph.
Alrighty. You are up, Neph.
Okay, so this is actually something new that I've been working on, along with a link to power, because I needed a break from everything else. I call this a hero's spirit, and it's a Sword Art Online crossover. Yes, well, more fusion, where the world is actually the world of Legend of Zelda. Shall I read the summary or just get right into the meat of the chapter?
Whatever you choose. If you feel like it'll help people understand, go for it.
That
All right.
big old juicy meat, please.
All right, I'll read the summary then, because that's probably going to help a lot of you. Okay. The curse of demise hatred will always follow the blood of the goddess Hylia and the spirit of the hero. That is not going to change, no matter what era they live in. As the newest Link and Zelda are about to learn, can Kirigaya Kazuto, farmhand and tech expert, and city girl Yuki Asuna make it out alive? And who is Akihiko Kayaba? That makes it fairly obvious who is who, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I hope it does.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the prologue is called A Friendship of Courage and Wisdom. And they are on the Lon Lon Ranch in December of 2021. He turned away from Epona when he heard a voice call out to him, "Hey, Kazuka." Kazuto smiled. "Good morning, Miss Yuki," he greeted the redhead happily. "I've told you that you can just call me Asuna-ta, Kazuto-ken," Yuki Asuna reminded him. Narisaka Kazuto chuckled. "I'm trying to be polite, Asuna-ta," he poked fun at her. "You are my best friend, Kazuto. You are allowed to be informal with me," Asuna huffed. "Big brother, are you finished with the sheep yet?" Kirigaya Suguha called from where she was standing next to her own horse. Kazuto rolled his eyes. "Just about, Sugu," he called back with a smile. Then he turned his attention to his best friend. "So, here for Christmas break?" "You know it," Asuna grinned. "I love it here. It's much better than the big city." I don't know how you deal with living in Tokyo, Kazuto agreed, and they laughed about it heartily. Kazu, don't you also go to school in Tokyo? Asuna asked. I do, Kazuto replied, as he led Asuna to the stable where her horse Solaris was waiting for her. Good morning, Solaris. Asuna greeted the huge stallion, petting the horse's nose. Solaris was as large as Epona, a bay, but unlike Epona, who had a white mane and tail, Solaris had a burnt orange red mane and tail. Solaris whinnied in greeting as Kazuto brought out his tack. So, what are we doing today, Kazuto? Asuna asked, turning to her friend. Keeping an eye on the sheep today, Kazuto replied with a smile. And then I get to put them to bed early. Asuna nodded. Okay. She reached for the saddle straps as her friend placed the saddle on her horse's back and secured the straps with the confidence that came from years of experience. When that was finished, Kazuto handed Asuna the reins. Thank you, Kazuka, Asuna said as she mounted her horse. Kazuto gave Asuna a grin as he mounted Epona. Together, they rode off into the pasture. Kazu, it's lunchtime, Asuna called, as she dismounted from Solaris and pulled a basket out of one of the saddlebags and a blanket out of the other. What did you pack this time? Kazuto asked, as he hopped down from Epona's saddle and took the blanket from Asuna. Grandma has been helping me experiment, Asuna said with a grin. So far they've all tasted good, Kazuto said, as he spread the blanket on the large flat stone where the pair and Suga usually had lunch. Where is Suga, Kazu? Asuna asked as she placed the basket on the covered rock. She's around, Kazuto replied. Said she didn't want to... What did she say? Kazuto asked himself. Yes. She didn't want to intrude. But I enjoy having lunch with Suga, Asuna said. And I told her that, Kazuto shrugged. She insisted. Asuna didn't speak for a long moment. Suga is acting weird. She is, Kazuto agreed. Suga held her binoculars to her eyes as she sat atop her horse Midnight Rose. So far, their date seems to be going well, Midnight, she said with a smile. The black horse with an equally black mane snorted in amusement. Really, those two need a kick in the pants, Suga sighed as she let her binoculars fall against her chest and pulled her half-eaten sandwich out to take another bite. He'd better thank me for being so generous. I volunteered to take his turn with the chickens this evening. Suga shivered. Those things are dangerous, she muttered to herself. At least they couldn't fly anymore. The cuckoos that their chickens had evolved from were 1,000 times worse from what she'd read in the family archive. She much preferred not to die for making a mistake. The flying chicken sounded like a nightmare in the making. Suga has been acting strange lately, Asuna mused. She is certainly spending less time with us than before, Kazuto agreed. Little sisters be strange. Older brothers, too, Asuna huffed. I swear, if Ko tries to tease me about our friendship one more time... What are you going to do to him? Kazuto asked in amusement. Asuna frowned as she looked up at the sky. I think I'm going to lock him in the basement. Kazuto chuckled. My go-to threat is locking Suga in the chicken coop. He grinned when that got a laugh out of his old friend. I don't know why our adorable chickens terrify her, really. Her fear is silly. It is, Asuna agreed. Tokyo, Argus offices. Kayaba Akihiko didn't bother to look up from his task when he heard the door to his shared office open. He knew that it was just his partner returning, and with his deadline looming, he could not afford to stop and turn his full attention to chatting with Sugo. Almost finished, Kayaba-san? Sugo Nobuyuki asked in an oily voice. I'd like to think so, Nobuyuki-kun, Kayaba replied, not looking away from the multiple screens in front of him. After I'm finished with the script, I plan to debug it, if I have time. He chanced a sideways glance at the other man. How has your research been going? Not as well as I would have hoped. I've gotten about as far as I can using animals. Sugo snorted in disdain. But I doubt I will get clearance to run any human trials, seeing as how, Sugo sneered, unethical doing mind control experiments on humans is. Kayaba was just glad that Sugo could not see his satisfied smirk. Would you be able to disguise what you're doing in a game? He asked curiously. Sugo was silent for a moment. Possibly, he replied slowly. It would depend on the type of game and how many people are playing it, and there are possibly a few more conditions that I've not thought of yet. Kayaba nodded absently as he continued working. That was about what he thought Sugo's answer would be. That is to be expected, he agreed. How big a sample size do you think you would need? Several hundred people at the smallest, Sugo replied. Why? Sugo gave his colleague a smirk. How does 1,000 followed by 10 times that sound? And where are these numbers coming from? Kayaba-sa. Sugo asked, a slow excitement in his tone. The beta test and full release of Hyrule Online. Kayaba replied. Numbers are more than I need. Mused. I suppose they will do, he said with a cruel smile. Perhaps this would allow him to finally get rid of the last hurdle that was between him and his obsession. Yamanashi Prefecture. Utsuki City, Lanlan Ranch. Kazuto looked up into the sky after they'd finished lunch. I think we can get away with putting the sheep away now, he mused. Blah. Then we can go riding like we usually do, right? Asuna asked as she packed up the Tupperware and dishes that they'd used for their midday meal. Yep, Kazuto agreed. Epona and Solaris both enjoyed jumping fences. Asuna winced. I'm still not very good at jumping. That's because you are only here for the breaks between semesters, Kazuto replied. You will get better the more you practice. I know, but I'm so far behind you, it's not funny, Asuna sighed. How much do you trust Solaris? Kazuto asked. Of course I trust him, Asuna replied hotly. That's not what I asked, Asuna, Kazuto said. I know you trust the stallion we gave you. My question was how much. I'm not sure I understand, Asuna replied. I trust Epona to not let me fall in the middle of a jump. Kazuto replied. Do you trust Solaris to do the same? If you don't, he will hesitate, which will lead to him and you getting hurt. How? Asuna asked with wide eyes. Solaris could fail to clear the fence, which could possibly injure his legs, Kazuto explained. And you could be thrown from his back, potentially bruising bone, if not outright breaking them. Kazuto sighed. And if that happened, I really doubt you would be allowed to visit anymore. Asuna turned to her stallion. Is that true, Solaris? She asked. Solaris snorted, nodding his head before pressing his snout against her chest to convey that he was confident in her abilities. I'll get better, Asuna promised, turning back to Kazuto. Can we set up some small fences that are easy to get over? Kazuto smiled. I don't see why not, he replied. There's no reason that you and Solaris should not be allowed to work your way up to what Epona and I usually jump. Then let's put the sheep away so we can start, Asuna said as she put the basket back into her saddlebags, followed by the blanket. You got it, Kazuto agreed, turning to his horse. Ready to finish the day, Epona? Epona whinnied happily. After a few minutes of working together, Kazuto and Asuna were finished putting the sheep away. That's always fun, Asuna exclaimed as she watched Suga set up the fences. Kazuto chuckled. Yeah, it's easy to make a game out of it when you are here, Asuna. You really think so? Asuna asked with a blush. Of course, you make everything much more enjoyable, Suga said with a grin as she finished. Go ahead. I'll show you again, Kazuto said. Ready, Epona? Epona got up on her hind legs and kicked the air in excitement, causing all three of them to smile. Kazuto nudged Epona into a trot and then a gallop. He held on tight as Epona came to the first fence and pushed off the ground, soaring clean over the wooden fence. You and Epona make it look so easy, Asuna said wistfully as Suga took the two topmost bars off the fence. Go ahead and try it. I know it doesn't look much shorter, but it is, Kazuto encouraged, neither of them noticing the faint glow on his left hand. Asuna gave him a nod. Can we take the jump slowly? Or is it better that we go fast? Go as fast as you're comfortable with, Kazuto replied. Solaris will take care of everything else. Back in Tokyo, Kayaba stopped typing to check something. If he was correct, he'd finished the script for Hyrule Online. Finished the script, Kayaba-san? Sugo asked, leaning over Kayaba's shoulder to take a look. It looks finished, Kayaba agreed. And you are certain that you're going to find 2 people in all of Tokyo with this? Sugo asked. I'm aware of how big a haystack Tokyo is, Nobuyuki. Kayaba replied, waving the other man's concern away. I still think you're crazy. What if they don't live in Tokyo? Sugo asked. Kayaba looked down at his gloved right hand. I'm as certain that they live in Tokyo, he said. Or they live close enough that they can work or go to school here. Finding them will not be easy, Sugo warned. Yes, I know how tall in order finding them will be, but I have a way to make it easier. Kayaba reassured his colleague with a rather smug smirk. And that's the end of the prologue.
Nice. Very good introduction to the characters, I think. Very good introduction to the characters.
Thank you.
Let's see, other feedback. Very clear relationship between Asuna and her friend. I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
Kirito?
Yeah, Kirito. And then I think the setup of Kaiba was very, very good as well. Where I think I at least like get clear, like, okay, this guy's at least like isn't totally like on the level, I guess you could say. That's the impression that I got from it.
Oh, nice.
I like the dialogue very much.
Thank you.
Very entertaining. Intriguing.
Yeah, I find dialogues easy for me.
I usually start with dialogue.
Yeah.
What they said. I'm not good at this. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right.
Alrighty. Count Valerian, I think it's your turn.
Okay, half a moment. This will just take a second. Assuming my computer doesn't do anything stupid. Here we go. Chapter 5. The working title is The Emperor is a Creep, but we knew that already. I'll have to change that eventually, but I'm keeping it for now.
Are you doing a Terry Pratchett style satire, or
No, I mean technically this is Technically, this is meant to be serious, but every now and then I just feel like doing something weird.
You
So-
could just make that part of your UVA where you just make silly titles for your book.
Yeah, I do. I do have a fair number of parodies, and I think for Halloween, if we're doing one on Halloween, I might read a bit from a parody. But this one is supposedly serious. So anyway, greetings, glorious, said the Yaji. May sacred nine smile upon your countenance. They'd smile a lot more if I were emperor, or if my exalted father weren't an idiot, grumbled Mpu'u. He has no subtlety and no notion that an autocrat has to respect certain appearances and forms if he's to remain an autocrat. I like a roll in the hay, or 20, as much as anyone. But this, the Akarians know how to debauch with taste. Prince Mpu'u and the Imperial Yaji, parenthesis, Minto Yaji or Yaji Mu Uchagaraimwa, close parenthesis, Malala Ama Bemwe Pakoe, were meeting, as was their wont, in the Imperial Hallow, Minto Wata, or if you're feeling ambitious, Wata Ndu Uchagaraimwa. Under Chugan rule, the center of the governor's palace had theoretically been devoted to the worship of the Chugan emperor, although next to no one in Sandaran worshipped him. But now no one even pretended to worship the Chugan emperor. And unfortunately, in an Uchandrea society, the Sandaranian emperors couldn't very well worship themselves, at least not officially. So the Chugan characters expressing emperor worship had been covered up with tapestries depicting Sandaranian imperial glory, and an attempt had been made to decorate the room in conformity with the truth, capital T. Luckily, of course, no one was allowed into the Hallow anyway, which was why Mpu'u and Malala Ama had decided to hold their meetings there. The latter would rather have been called Grand Yaji, but that would have been too open a rebellion against the real Grand Yaji, whose seat was thousands of miles to the south, in Ichakarainaj. One might indeed wish for greater wisdom in Exalted, sighed Malala Ama, but it must often happen that worthy servants must guide their rulers in the path of wisdom. I would settle for taste, said Mpu'u. Take this Suwara accursed imperial Hallow we're meeting in. There are no proper images. They just take Chugan idols and add one or two things to pretend they're Sandaranian. The truth, capital T, is dreary enough without making it look dreary. My exalted grandfather at least had a sense of taste and a love of beauty, and would doubtless have prettied up the place if those accursed mountain barbarians hadn't kept rebelling. My exalted father only thinks of debauchery, and isn't any good even at that. Have a care, Glorious. It is never wise to speak disrespectfully of one's exalted begetter, and must Glorious sit on the heroic Deloe's tomb? The three great ancestors, Deloe, Oea, and Runja the Liberator, had been buried in the Hallow, or at least so it was claimed. The current emperor had reserved the fourth tomb for himself. It's obviously equal in glory. Oh, don't be so fussy, blessed. The death won't care. It probably isn't really Deloe anyway, if there ever was a Deloe. Be that as it may, as exalted as Glorious himself so wisely has pointed out, forms are important. Shall we attend upon Exalted? Someone may come looking, and the slightest appearance of disloyalty. Oh, very well, blessed. Things have come to a pretty pass when the son must restrain the father. the court might be walking on its head. And that's that. Just a short passage today.
Nice. I definitely get a good sense of this guy's character. Why is there no?
I had fun writing him, yes. I hope the names aren't too confusing.
I think I would have. I think like if I'm reading it, I probably have a little bit more context and possibly even like a lore book glossary at the beginning to kind of at least understand some of the culture stuff. But I think it's fine.
Yeah, I'm going to put a glossary. At least I plan to put a glossary in later when I'm finished with it. Because otherwise, people won't know who I'm talking about. I think there needs to be an index of names too.
Very good. Yes, very good. By the way, is it me or does Neph
Mental
change his
disorders.
profile pictures more often than I change mental disorders? God damn, Red.
This is my Halloween avatar for this month.
God damn, Red.
Are we doing one on Halloween? A writer showcase?
No, actually.
Oh, is the writer showcase on a set? I'm sorry, is Halloween on a Saturday?
Yes.
Oh,
Nice.
Oh,
Nice.
No. Yes, it's 2 weeks from now.
It's okay, Red. It's okay. I'll be there stroking your hair. I'll sing you a lullaby to sleep. All right, it's not gay. All right. So wait, it's my turn now.
Yeah.
Okay.
First,
Sorry. I kind of blanked out a little bit.
No worries. First, I have to do something.
You made it weird.
No. Well, exactly.
Got it.
So do you want me to go while you're doing something, or?
No, keep going.
Okay. This is so. If you remember back in the past, I read those 2 stories about the prehistoric animals, and I have a third one that I've been kind of saving in my back pocket since the thing I wanted to read isn't finished yet because I'm kind of lazy. So here we go. It's called Ghost of the Desert. Sunrise brings warmth to a cold Mongolian night. A pack of velociraptors is the first to feel the sun's warmth. The first to wake is a young raptor named Blue after a long blue streak of feathers from the top of his head to the tip of his tail. One would think that such a feature would be attractive given their bird-like nature, but his blue stripe has cost them many times during a hunt. In turn, Blue is shunned from the rest of the pack and isn't allowed to go hunting anymore. Before the daily hunt, the pack begins to preen, picking out any ticks and other parasites from their feathers, not fur. Blue, of course, is left to cleaning himself. The pack leaves to hunt, while Blue is left to guard the nest. While the pack is away, Blue decides to climb up the tall tree next to the female's nests. It helps pass time by and allows him to watch all other animals. What the fuck is this? It helps pass the time and allows him to watch all other animals. Kind of a form of raptor entertainment, if you will. What was I high when I wrote this? I don't know. About an hour passes by and still no sign of the pack. Another hour goes by and still the pack hasn't returned. It's almost dark and the pack still isn't back. Blue is confused and distraught. He's been left behind. The pack has abandoned him. Blue was a weak link in the pack. Say pack more times. A liability. Cruel, yes, but to ensure the survival of the rest, he had to be left behind. The next morning, Blue wakes to the shriek of another raptor, a female, smaller and more aggressive than the females Blue is used to dealing with. Blue doesn't know how to deal with this. His confusion irritates the female as she bites him on the snout. He gets the message and leaves the only place he feels safe. This couldn't have happened at a worse time. A sandstorm is kicking up, and if Blue doesn't find shelter soon, he'll most likely die. Chapter 2. Why do I have this in chapters? God. Blue finds a small cave he can hide in until the sandstorm dies down. After the sandstorm, Blue hears shrieks of terror coming from the sand. After he gets closer, the shrieks begin to sound like the raptor shrieks his old pack. Sounds like raptor. Oh, okay. They sound like raptor shrieks. His old pack had been buried alive while trying to kill a protoceratops. Their cries for help grow weaker and weaker before they finally die. Before Blue can comprehend what happened, he hears a loud grunting. He turns around and sees a very angry protoceratops. Blue tries to run away, but is soon knocked to the ground. The old male then gashes Blue's leg with his beak. Blue finally manages to get away. He's been hurt badly. With only one place he feels he can go, regardless of how the female feels. When Blue arrives at his old nest area, the female isn't at all pleased. She tries to scare him off, but Blue isn't fazed. All he wants to do is lay down and rest. Angry, the female gets right in Blue's face and shrieks as loud as she can. Still, Blue isn't fazed with the female. This close to his face. Blue notices that the female has bright scarlet eyes. After about an hour, Scarlet finally gives up and lets Blue stay. 3 days pass and Blue's leg is healing well, but something's off. Scarlet is tolerating Blue more and more. It's gotten to the point where Scarlet has started to preen him. He's not used to this kind of behavior. Blue is usually the one overlooked or not even cared about by the members of his dead pack. It's time to hunt, and Blue has come up with a very different way of hunting. Scarlet spots a lone protoceratops. Using the thick patch of bushes, she crouches and waits until the old bull turns his back. The old male thrashes to shake. Oh my sweet fucking god! Did I actually skip an entire scene when I was writing this? The old male thrashes, trying to shake Scarlet off. Scarlet finally loses her grip and is thrown off. The protoceratops regroups and prepares to charge Scarlet. Before he tackles her, Blue jumps down from the tree onto the old male's back and drives his killing claw into the bull's neck, severing his brainstem, killing him instantly. Since there's only two of them, they don't need to fight and see who will go first. The next morning, Blue and Scarlet are woken up by loud squawking sounds. The sound is coming from a herd of therizinosaurs, a group of herbivorous theropods. Blue and Scarlet have never seen such odd beasts. Usually therizinosaurs live more north, but for some reason they've traveled all the way here. There must be at least 30 of them. Blue can't stop staring at their very long arms and claws, the longest of any animal. Close by, Scarlet spots a large figure stalking the herd. She spots the trademark small two-fingered arms, large, broad head, and stocky, robust build. It's a tyrannosaur, Tarbosaurus batar, a close relative of Tyrannosaurus rex. The large tyrannosaur approaches Blue and Scarlet's nesting site. Both of them are terrified, fearing that the Tarbosaurus will kick them out of their spot. When he finally arrives, the large theropod surprisingly leaves the raptor's nest site alone and instead makes its home 10 feet to the right. Blue has seen his kind before and is confused by this strange behavior. Usually they're more aggressive, even towards small predators like he and Scarlet. Scarlet and Blue investigate the massive beast. The Tarbosaurus Attila doesn't seem to mind the small predators. Attila is covered with scars, some of which are years old. He looks about 20 years old. Most Tarbosaurs live only till 15. The squawking of the Theriznosaurs dies down as they begin to feed. These odd creatures were once carnivores, but that was a very long time ago. Several days go by, and Attila, as well as the Theriznosaur herd, have not yet left. Attila is feeding on an adult Theriznosaur. Curious on how they would taste, Scarlet decides to steal a piece. Blue, as well as any other predator, would rather starve than steal from a 40-foot Tarbosaur, but Scarlet isn't your normal raptor. Strangely, Attila doesn't mind. In fact, he gives both of them a chunk of meat to try. Scarlet digs in while Blue sits down and tries to put together what just happened. Never before had he seen a predator offer food to other predators. After gathering himself, Blue digs into the free meal. 1 month goes by, and finally the Theriznosaur herd decides to move on, and Attila follows after. Saying his goodbye with Blue and Scarlet, Scarlet lets out a loud shriek. Blue has stopped questioning the things Scarlet does. 2 months have told him he'll never get an answer. Spring is upon the Gobi, and so is the mating season. At 7 years old, this is Blue's third, and at 8 years old, this is Scarlet's fourth. Scarlet has had a clutch of eggs before, but were raided by oviraptors. Blue was always overlooked and ignored by the other females of his old packs, being the only raptor to show any kind of interest in him. Blue tries to court Scarlet. One day, he attempts to perform a mating dance. Blue starts off strong, but trips over a rock and falls into a thorn bush. It seems that once again, Blue will go another year without mating. The only thing hurt here is Blue's pride. As Blue sits under his tree, picking out the thorns, Scarlet sits next to him and helps pick them out. About an hour passes, and Scarlet shows signs of interest in Blue. Not questioning it, he and Scarlet mate later that night. 3 months pass, and Blue is sitting on a clutch of eggs, his first. Never had he thought that this... Oh, well, I can't read the rest of this because it's all smudged. There's only 3 lines left, so that's it.
Oh.
Well, too bad.
Oh, that wasn't too bad.
I don't know what was wrong with that. That was horribly structured. A lot of it was smudged because it was in pencil. So
it's handwritten then?
Yeah, it was in a little journal. It was handwritten. It was all smudged because it was in pencil. Pencil, fucking Christ.
I guess the bit where what the F was going on here probably was not actually part of the story.
Yeah. No. I mean, it's fine. I mean, if you could follow it, that's fine. But still, the structure was awful. Awful.
Oh yeah. No trouble following it.
Okay. It's just awful.
Even with the missing scene, I had no trouble following it either.
there's a slight element of I'm wondering what exactly is going on, like at a few points, but that was mostly like at the points where scenes were skipped.
Yeah, I don't know what happened when I was writing it, but like I think I skipped. I might have. I have no idea what happened. No idea.
The emu. Imagine the emu.
Velociraptors instead of emu birds. Well, I mean, velociraptors are smaller than emus, so it actually might go better. So that's something. Well, I hope you enjoyed that Tizzy mess.
It was pretty good.
Yeah,
I didn't mind
it was
it.
fine.
Okay, I'll have a better one next time.
Okay. Alrighty. So with mine, I kind of want to like very much be for you guys to be thinking, okay, is this so? This is kind of a continuation of something I read from a while back, where it's the Lost Legion, not the Lost Legion, not Prince of Winter. I'm really interested to kind of see like how you guys react to Richard Fenris. Like just now, he has just barely destroyed a castle where some people were deliberately making sure that like he just uses trebuchets to just lob rocks at the castle to destroy it. He doesn't really care about the um cat civilian casualties. He just like, I'm not going to risk my troops. That's not going to happen. And so this is kind of him engaging in a battle, but then there's a moment where he has a moment where he is going to kind of do something pretty bad in a lot of ways. Let me see. So Richard watched coldly as the tower collapsed in on itself under the barrage of boulder strikes. So ends the House of Odensar, or he said quietly. Casually, he motioned toward the sappers manning the machine and siege engines. Start hurling dead horses into the fortress. I want to understand we can crush them without losing a single man. The men nodded and started loading the slightly rotten horse corpses into the trebuchets. Slowly, Richard rested his hand on his sword and narrowed his eyes. Soon enough, the white flag was raised. Behind the gate walls as the gates opened. Abruptly, he raised his hand. Hold the barrage, he commanded. Robert, Lord Skull, come with me. It's time to burn this place to the ground. Michael Tyre and his brother Aaron rode toward Vala Hall, seeing smoke rising from the castle. We might be too late. Aaron squealed, his puffy face exposing his apprehension. They couldn't have taken Vala Hall this quickly, Michael declared, heavily lined face creased in a snarl. Let them be alive, he thought. Finally, the Tyre host summited the hills, exposing the view of a ruined castle and a large force of men moving the treasure from what remained. By the gods, Aaron gasped. What is going on? For answer, Michael drew his sword and waved it toward his light cavalry. Charge! He roared. Maybe we'll be able to surprise them. He thought as he led his cavalry in a wild charge. Richard watched as the Tyre host charged toward his position. Casually, he motioned toward Lord Garm. I believe you have reason to humble these posturing fools, he remarked. The red-bearded lord grinned widely and rode off to direct his infantry. As the enemy cavalry approached, Hatia, as horse archers charged out of the underbrush, arrows flying through the ranks. Enemy soldier arrows as the enemy ranks began to fray, then completely collapsed when Gar's pikemen bunched together, creating a forest of spears. Airs for the enemy cavalry to dash themselves against. Richard motioned to his heavy cavalry. Charge, he said flatly. A crossbow bolt sticking out of his shoulder, Aaron Tyre fled the battlefield, leaving behind the corpses of the entire Tyre force. He'd only been able to get away when the men had begun breaking. He planned this out, he whispered, pain lancing through his back from the bolt stuck in his shoulder blade. They'd slaughtered his brother's forces like wolves defending a wounded deer. Their superior numbers in preparation, causing the Tyre forces to dash themselves against the spears and swords of their enemy. Both of his nephews had been dragged down from their horses, vanishing behind what looked like a dozen stabbing blades. What had happened to Michael, he did not know. All Aaron knew was that he was Lord of Hunterdon, and the wolves would be coming soon. Richard stood with his hands clasped behind his back as the Red Hunter himself was dragged before him. His dirty blonde hair framed his long, craggy face, both smeared in blood and mud. "You little bastard," Michael spat toward Richard. With a grimace, Garm punched him in the face, sending the man to the ground. Michael Tyre, Richard said coolly, concealing his contentment behind a mask of cool disdain. "In the name of King Henry, I strip you of all lands and titles. Your lands are now dead. Your sons are now dead, and your castle will be given up to more deserving and loyal lords." "What are you playing at, boy?" Michael demanded. "You may have beaten us, but you still have Hunterdon to deal with. I can still give you a measure of bargaining. Let me keep my titles, and I will negotiate a surrender." "Why would I do that?" Richard asked, resting his hand on the hilt of terror. This was the critical moment. He needed steel in his backbone as he was complete to this task. Michael stuttered. "Because you are traitors and thieves." Richard cut him off. "What use do I have for traitors and thieves?" Casually, he drew his sword. "The price of treason is death, Lord Michael," he said quietly. Curtly, he motioned to the men and holding Michael. "Bring me a stump." "No!" Michael struggled against the men holding him, only to be savagely punched in the face. "You cannot do this." "Michael, formerly of House Tyre, by right of my office as acting Lord Marshal of the North," Richard began as he rested the tip of his weapon against the ground. "I, Richard of the House Fenris, sentence you to die." As Richard's men placed the stump on the ground in front of Michael, the men holding him bent him over the wood. "Would you speak a final word?" "No, no, please, please, don't do—" Richard silenced him with one swing of his sword. Michael's head dropped to the ground and rolled along the grass, trailing a line of blood. "Burn the body and place the head on a spear. I want them to know who is coming for them." Robert watched as the mighty host advanced across the plains toward the Hunterdon, Silver Fang padding beside his horse. The fortress itself was small, barely a keep, but the main defense was the mountain. Long ago it had been hauled out into large halls and passageways, all of them fortified. Richard had been there once, and it was a daunting maze of winding corridors. How they were going to take it was beyond him. Silverfang bared her teeth and growled at the mountain. Red eyes is glaring. Grinning, Richard reached down and scratched his wolf's head. He expected to feel different now that he was a knight, but apart from the new look in the eyes of the soldiers, there was no difference. The last 2 battles had been brutal, but he had been the one to slay the Roundhead. That alone gave Robert a sense of pride. "You've done well, brother." Robert turned to see Richard right up to him, his black direwolf padding beside his monster of a black destrier. "I'm proud of you," his big brother continued, putting his hand on Robert's shoulder. "I'm sorry I didn't capture Ryan." Robert took a deep breath. "I don't know what came over me." "It was necessary," Richard shrugged. "He was going to be executed anyway. You saved us quite a bit of time." "So, what do you mean to do when we reach Hunterdon?" Robert asked. "I do not believe they will surrender, but that is not a surprise," Richard said, mind clearly elsewhere. "The castle itself has never been taken by assault, but that is not my intention." "What do you mean to do?" "I mean to uproot them," Richard said. "Deal out such severe punishment on them that no man shall ever forget the fate of traitors and leeches." "Well, whatever you plan on doing, I'm with you," Robert promised. "If we have to assault—" "No," Richard said quietly. "I'm not wasting men and time trying to root these weasels out of their warren. I mean to purge them, with as little loss of life on our side as possible." "How do you intend to do that?" Robert asked, confused. "Without a head-on assault, there is only a siege, and they have enough supplies in there to last roughly a couple of years." Calmly, Richard gestured toward the landscape. "What do you see?" he asked. Utterly baffled, Robert glanced around looking around the land. "I see Hunterdon, a blank landscape, apart from the river." "The river is our weapon, brother." There, Richard's smile was chilling as he pointed toward the river, then moved it toward the Hunterdon. "Those mines are at a downward slope. Also, there is a large pool of water that we can dam. They will suffer from water above and below. Soon enough, everyone in the mountain will die, and once we're done, we can drain it and take back what is owed us." "Hundreds of non-combatants will die," Robert stated flatly. "Yes, which is why I will give a chance for anyone who desires to depart." Richard flexed his hands. "Any that stay will be choosing their fate." "It's a rather brutal method," Robert said quietly. "Yes, but here is the question." Richard adjusted his grip on the reins. "If we do attack, hundreds of our men will die, lives we cannot afford to lose." He nodded toward the mountain. "If we do as I have planned, none of our men will fall, and we will purge this land of the stains of the old bloods." Richard nodded, turned his cold black eyes on Robert. "Is it better that we waste the lives of our men killing men who would die anyway? Or shall we preserve the lives of those loyal to us?" "You make a good point," Robert admitted. "So, when do we begin?" "Tonight, after I meet with whoever is in command." Richard tilted his head. "We must prepare." Richard rode up to the outskirts of the castle, just as a group of men bearing a white flag in their hands. "So, this is how this piddling war ends," Richard thought. "If they do surrender, then we will execute Aaron along with the rest of the remaining men and give the castle to Skull. The lands of Odensar will be divided amongst Garum and Hatia, but if they resist, then I will scour them as I intended. I'll have to create additional tunnels to prevent what I'm planning on doing from ever happening again. but that will be a minor endeavor in the grand scheme of things. Prince Richard, the leader called. I am Captain Surt, and I am in command, and now that Lord Aaron is bedridden. Bedridden, eh? How convenient. Richard leaned back in his saddle. So, what now? We've come to offer terms, Surt declared. We will surrender and grant you half of all the treasury contains, but Lord Aaron must be spared. How much is in the treasury? Robert demanded. 100,000 silver pieces, Surt declared. That sounds like you people are still attempting to rob me, Richard said coolly. He wasn't angry, just resigned to what he needed to do. Consider the other half a blood price for those who you have slain. Surt sounded angry. We would have paid the entire debt, but you killed Lord Michael and his sons. So what? Richard raised an eyebrow. The man was clearly an ascended member of the household guard. He was blunt, lacking in refinement. Surt quivered. Here's how this is going to work, Richard cut him off. You will surrender, unconditionally, and provide the money due my family. You provide Lord Aaron and his sons for execution for their treason, and the women of the house will be sent to the Black Sisterhood. Those are my terms. You cannot take the fortress, Surt snarled. We have supplies for 2 years. You'll have to stay here twiddling your thumbs or try assaulting our fortified position. Sighing, Richard rested his hands on the high cantle of his saddle. In 4 days, every single person inside that mountain will die. Surt sputtered. Impossible. It's true, Richard said calmly. I will allow anyone who wishes to leave to depart, but only women and children. We'll take our chances, sire. Surt turned his horse and rode away. Well, I gave them a chance, Richard thought as he motioned to Robert. Get the work on the dam done quickly. Fill every single possible escape and block up the river coming out of the fortress. Aaron could only watch in horror as his room rapidly began filling with water. Air pockets had formed and started to deplete as more and more of the river flooded into the mountain. Shoulder throbbing, Aaron sucked in a few deep breaths just as the water covered his bed. He was able to hold his breath for a few minutes, but finally his air ran out. Automatically he gasped. Water rushed into his mouth, filling his lungs with liquid. He tried to swim upward, only be met with the ceiling. The world blacked out. Richard had been wrong. It hadn't taken 4 days to flood the mines. It had taken 3. Once the water began rising out of the outside keep, coupled with a few drowned and bloated bodies, Richard had commanded the mines drained. More bodies flowed out of the hole and down the river, pale and sodden. A few torch-bearing scouts were sent to the drowned fortress, heads wrapped to keep from smelling the horrible stench of rotting bodies. Eventually they returned, looking slightly sick. They're all dead, sire, the leader scout declared, voice pale with discomfort. Very well. Richard put his hand on his sword hilt. Move in. I mean to strip this entire place of everything of value. Anything beyond the debt will be divided among Skull, Hatia, and Garm. Motioned the scout. Alert them, please. Of course, the scout nodded and rushed off. As they approached, the horrible stink of death was overpowering. All of the men stuffed bits of cloth into their noses, though Richard's nose was at least still riled by the horrible stench. Water dripped from the walls, ceiling, and coated the floor. Those few sodden and bloated corpses lay on the ground. A great number were children, unfortunately, their bodies pale and swollen as the adults, if slightly smaller. He'd have to have all the bodies collected and burned. There were too many, even for a mass grave, and this place was far too valuable to become a simple burial site. This is a dark day, nephew, Hatia said quietly, glancing at a pair of drowned children clutching their mother. It was either us or them, Richard said quietly. Our men would have died, men who trusted me to bring them home, men who believed me when I told them I could win. Sending them into this place like lambs into a slaughterhouse would have been poor repayment for that faith. So what now? Skull asked. Men will remember this. Good, Richard said quietly. I will never allow what has happened with my family to ever occur again. Pointedly he gestured to the dead bodies all around them. Let this be a lesson to those who wish to steal from the wolves. Garm grimaced. We'll need to clean this place out and refortify so that what happened to these poor sods doesn't happen and to whoever Richard gets this place. It will be given to Lord Skull, but the accompanying lands will be divided amongst you three, Richard said quietly. I want only what is due my family by law. You may take the excess of silver and divide the land amongst yourselves. I have no need of it. Generous, Heishi remarked. You've earned it. Richard reached down and picked up a silver candlestick from the ground. Anything that exceeds the debts they own, House Fenris is yours as well. Skull pressed his fist to his chest and bowed. A great honor. Aye, Garm agreed, sounding pleased. Richard clasped his hands behind his back. With this stroke, both Heishi and Garm would double their income, along with Skull, though a huge piece would go to House Fenris in taxes. It took a couple days to clean out the castle, but when it was done, Richard had claimed all the debts owed his family. Nothing remained of the houses Odensar and Tyre, but a line of pyres across the landscape. Prince John watched as the wagons loaded with silver trailing into the castle, unsure how to feel as Richard approached. His middle son rode beside the column, their ancestral sword at his side. It suited him, as it had never suited John. He was far too fat. Elias dry washed his hands as he stood beside John, on posture as uncomfortable as the High Prince's. The young prince quickly dismounted, then walked toward his father. Richard, John asked, fear in his heart, what have you done? Taken back what was owed, Richard said quietly, in both blood and silver. Is it true that you put everyone in Hunterdon to the sword? Elias demanded. Hunterdon? No, Richard shrugged. The Roundheads, Housel Knights, the man himself, his family, his brother-in-law, their families, and the army of the Tyre family. Why? John asked. They were our friends. Friends do not steal from friends, Richard said flatly. Friends don't lie to friends. You had no reason, John protested, though his son's unblinking gaze caused him to trail off. They flouted the king's justice, father. Richard's voice didn't rise, but the chill made John's skin crawl. They've threatened rebellion over and over again. And for what? The request of what was due our family by law. He spread his hands. And now we have shown what we are. Wolves who will take back what is ours. Butchery is not our way, John protested. We are men, not wolves. You're a puppy, father, Richard said flatly. For men to respect you, they must understand that you do in fact have fangs. I have shown the North that our house has fangs. Without another word, Richard walked past his father, his direwolf padding beside him. John swallowed hard, but he didn't try to hold his son. Can he be tamed? Elias whispered. No. John whispered. What have they done to my son? And that's the end.
I like it.
Why do you want to kill Ryan Johnson? I mean, TLJ was bad, but you don't have to kill the Roundhead.
I must eviscerate my enemies, my intellectual enemies in fiction, since I cannot do it in real life.
Oh, I see.
It's so very cathartic.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. Since
Actually, I don't.
And if you notice the Michael and Aaron, that's a reference to Aaron Kruger and Michael Bay.
I know Michael Bay, but I don't know the Aaron.
Aaron Kruger is the writer of the Transformers movies.
Oh, okay. So he's retarded. Got it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess what are your opinions of Richard? Does he kind of like go too far, or does he like have good points? Or is it kind of a mix of both?
Mm,
He's clearly bad, like he does, or at least like very gray. He doesn't.
yeah, he's clearly very gray. He does have a point, but he didn't go quite that far.
Hmm.
I mean, killing, doing something to teach the person who's stealing from you a lesson, I can understand, but outright killing them and their entire family, that's going a teeny weeny bit too far, but I think it works.
Look, you need to eliminate the family too. You don't want any. You don't want any. You'll kill my father. Prepare to die. People coming after you, right? So you got to kill. Yeah, you got to kill the little bastards too.
Yeah, but my point was, you didn't necessarily need to kill him. You could have put him in jail or something, but it depends completely on the character's outlook, I think.
It's very much a scorched slash salted earth mentality.
Yeah.
And it's very much a reaction to how he's raised by his dad, as opposed to the man who is his mentor, because his mentor is his mentor is a very like strong-willed guy, and Richard, as well as Richard is saying to his dad, he's sending a clear message like, no, he's kind of pushing away from his dad and trying to be more like his grandfather, who he saw as an actual man, because he thinks his dad is pathetic.
Well, where did he get that idea from?
Partially it's what do you mean? Like partially because he lets his dad walk all over him. Like, well, lets his dad like his dad lets people walk over him and demand like extravagant loans, and without the intention of paying them back. And Richard just sees them as that is stealing.
Oh, like Tywin and Titus. Titus. What's the chap's name?
Yeah, that's very much like the idea that I was going for, where it's basically he was kind of like my kind of Tywin Lannister, but less hypocritical. Tywin Lannister, but a little bit more like self-aware of what he is. Like he like admits to himself that he's a schemer, and just says, I fully understand. Like right now, we are not respected at all, and if you keep going, we are going to be in ruin. And he just he just hates his dad and wants to be like his grandfather, because his grandfather was a warrior who commanded respect, and part of that was he was willing to be the man who swung the sword, as well as the person who passed the sentence, and Richard wants to emulate it. Kind of, yeah.
I still think he went a little bit too far, but
yes,
that's his characterization, so I'm not complaining.
Yeah, he's very much a man who like says, if I'm going to do this, I might as well do it the most efficient, brutal way possible, because otherwise they're not going to take me seriously.
Yeah, especially when his dad lets them walk all over him.
Yeah, German people pay good money for that.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's kind of like definitely not going to be some like an act that is morally justifiable, because he's killing non-combat. He is like aware that he is going to kill non-combatants in that action, and kill like several hundred people with a like by flooding it. But his option, but he admits that like if he doesn't do it, he's gonna have to send his men into like into a kill zone where they'll have to fight their way through and possibly lose. So
Yeah.
So he decides, I'm not going to play by the rules. Thank you. No.
No, I'm changing the rules.
I've heard of this Richard chap before. It was another live stream. Was it the villains who were right one or the writing one? It was one
I
of those.
think it was writing process, yeah. Because originally this scene wasn't in the first draft of the story. I actually restructured the whole book so that it could involve parallel narratives where you have the story of Richard's past and the story of Richard's present kind of coming together. But that was kind of something that I decided to do. I think after I'd finished writing the book, so I just like, okay, I need to finish writing this because it gives a lot of context for what's going to happen in the book. And the main focus of the book is very much this man is like not a good person, but he is kind of the king that is needed at this point in time. But the issue is after he dies in between the first and second book, there's going to be chaos happening because he himself cannot inspire that much loyalty. He inspires like fear, but after he goes, there's going to be a power vacuum. But yeah, that's pretty much the gist of things. I think that is about it. Thank you everybody for coming. This has been a good writer showcase and good discussion as well. I'm glad that like I could have a range of opinions on my reading. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, then.
Yes.
Alrighty. Well, this has been fun, but I must say,
Holy shit. Okay, we're going.